Toastmasters. How are you all again? Good morning and thanks for coming. So, my name is Stuart Schlossman. I didn't get to say that before. I am telling you that now. My name is Stuart Schlossman. I too have multiple sclerosis. And years ago, when I was diagnosed and I found that the resources weren't available, I wanted to do this for my local MS community. And so I started providing information to just a small support group. At that time, that group was just 20 people, so I was sending them email every single day. Then that started to grow with support group leaders around the state finding out what I was doing, and eventually in other states as well. By the way, again, I said that it started off with 20 people. Our database now exceeds 35,000 worldwide, okay? And I hope that you all appreciate that. Thank you. I heard that. Thank you. All right, so continuing on, again, I do have multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed in 1998, and it's perseverance that keeps me doing all these things. It's knowing that the MS community thanks what I am doing, and so we do provide and provide. Our organization will not hire a person unless they have a neurologic problem. We want them to all feel part of what is going on. So if you're healthy, don't come to us to be hired. It's not going to happen, okay? So, listen, for today's program, we want to thank Teva Neuroscience. We get funded by pharmaceutical to do all of our programs. And for today's program, I want to thank, I hope that you could all thank as well, Teva Neuroscience for giving us the dollars to do today's program. Thank you. For today's program, Cherie C is a nurse from Rhode Island, and she was asked to come down and speak with you all about changing focus. So, again, I want to thank you all for coming here today because we cannot do programs like this unless you are here. So now I want to thank you all for coming, and thanks very much. Cherie, come on up. Let's begin. Right on time, 11:35, see?
Well, hello. My name is Cherie C, and I also have MS. This sounds like a 12-step meeting, doesn't it? I was diagnosed in 1994 after 19 years of symptoms, and have had quite the journey with MS during that time. I'm also a registered nurse, and in 2003, I became an internationally certified MS nurse. There are about, at one time there were probably 1,200 of us. Most of the drug companies use nurses that have that special training for their call centers, and many of the neurology offices use MS certified nurses. However, I have a solo practice in Rhode Island that stretches across the US and into other countries around the world, where I act as a resource finder for people. And I also really work with people to maximize their doctor's visits. Make sure that they know what questions to ask their doctors so that the time goes smoothly and get the most bang for the buck in your visit. I think when I was diagnosed, because I had been symptomatic for 19 years, and because I was still walking unassisted, they thought that I had a very mild form of MS. So I didn't go on any medication. 1994, there was only one medication on the market, and there was still a lottery for it. So it just was not being given to people who were not really impacted very strongly. I had a lot of invisible symptoms, but that didn't make them less of symptoms for me. So by 1996, I was starting to use a cane, 1998, 2 canes, and in 2001, I was scooter dependent. I was using catheters, I was legally blind, and I kind of became a hermit because I really couldn't get out of the house without somebody to drive my car that had the scooter lift on the back of it. And not too many people want to take the responsibility of driving somebody else's car with something sticking off the back end. So it was just easier to stay home and pull into myself than it was to reach out to others. I ended up with a new neurologist the summer of 1991, and he took one look at me and he said, "I'm sorry, but you don't have benign or mild MS. I think you have become secondary progressive, or at least progressive relapsing," which is a term we don't even use anymore. "Have you ever had steroids?" And I said, "No." So he put me on a course of steroids, and 2 weeks later, my neuro exam was improved. So he brought me back into the office and said, "I don't know that this is going to work for you, but I'm putting you on this medication." And over the course of the next maybe 6 months, I began to notice a slight improvement. But within a year, I was going back downhill again, until I discovered that there was an ad in one of the MS magazines for a cruise. MS Cruise for a Cause. And I thought, okay, I got to do something. And I have to tell you, even though I'm an RN and for years was a home care nurse caring for people who were homebound with MS, I got better education on that cruise than at any time in my life. High quality. I learned so much more about not only myself, but how to treat what was going on with me. And so I happened to have an appointment with my neurologist when I got home, and he said, "How you doing?" I said, not so great." He said, "Well, we can try some more steroids." And I said, "I don't think that's what I need, but we are going to change my meds." He said, "To what?" So I told him. He says, "Oh, you won't like that." I said, "Why?" He said, "Too many side effects." I said, "Like what?" And he said, "Well, there's injection site reactions and flu-like symptoms." I said, "I'm a nurse. I teach people how to manage stuff like that. What do you think the symptoms of MS are, or the side effects of MS are?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, they're different for everybody, but for me, I need to be close to a bathroom. I need to use catheters regularly to empty my bladder. I do face plants all the time if I'm not real careful and I'm trying to walk across a room. It's like the floor is moving under me. I'm awake at least every 20 minutes all night long because of pain. I keep flip-flopping just to get a more comfortable position at night." And I went on to list even more symptoms. And I said, "So those are the side effects of MS for me. Somehow I don't think the side effects of a medication are worse than the side effects of my MS." He said, "I don't think I ever thought about it that way." So today I'm going to talk to you about living well with MS. Now, this picture was taken on Father's Day this year at Six Flags New England. That's me and my husband Dave at the bottom of a roller coaster, which sometimes MS feels like. That picture to me is a crappy picture of me, but I'll tell you, it says a lot about how we can live better lives with MS. We need support. Dave's hanging on for dear life, but he's also got his arm around me. It was a hot day that day. I'm wearing my cooling vest and collar, so I have the right equipment to be more comfortable in situations I wouldn't ordinarily put myself in. So we've got roller coaster life with MS. We've got support. And in whatever form that takes, it could be support with groups like this, or online support groups, or local support groups, or family support groups. Support is very important. And using the right equipment for the right situation. There's a lot of people out there using canes that really need to be using walkers. There are people out there using scooters that really need to be in power chairs. The rule of thumb with a scooter is if you cannot walk 25 feet with a cane or walker. You should not be in a scooter. It's not safe. It's not designed for people that can't walk at least 25 feet. You need to be in a power chair. This little slide that I put up here I found on Pinterest. It gives some of the higher percentages of symptoms associated with MS. And as you can see, 96% of us from that slide suffer from MS fatigue. MS fatigue is drastically different than fatigue from any other cause. I liken it to having the starch gone out of my spine. I can't hold myself erect. Or knuckle dragging fatigue. I feel like a gorilla walking on my knuckles. It's very much more intense than the kind of fatigue that you'd get from putting in a long, hard day or doing a major project. That's just a good visual, I think. If anybody wants this visual emailed to them, on your table I've put some cards with my business cards with my email on. If they're generally at every other place at the table, so if you've come with somebody that doesn't have MS, ask them for my card and give it to them. I may have a few extra in my purse after I'm finished if you need them. Don't hesitate to ask. This next slide also came from Pinterest, and it's an anacrostic that uses multiple sclerosis as the words, and it lists various symptoms off of each of the letters in multiple sclerosis. I just thought that it was a good visual. That's kind of, doesn't translate well from where you're sitting because the wording is so small. So, what I would like to do is ask you to, for a minute, change the focus from those first two slides that I showed you, the percentage of symptoms and the various things that go into the definition of multiple sclerosis, and we're going to change the focus to living better with MS. Where do we start? I think the very most important thing that any of us can do is to take control of our healthcare team. That may mean that we need to add people to the team or take people off the team. The key person on the healthcare team is you. You are the head of your healthcare team. You are the hirer and firer. You are human resources. So, hire the best neurologist that you have available to you. Make sure that they have at least a couple of hundred people in their practice with MS. You guys have the benefit of having Stony Brook right here on the island, so you've got a good MS center there. A lot of people in this country literally travel 8 to 12 hours to get to an MS specialist. In high-dense population areas like this, you may have choices. You could go into the city. You could go to Stony Brook. You could go into Connecticut or wherever you chose. Make sure that you have a good primary care physician, an internist if you have other health issues that need caring for, like hypertension or diabetes or obesity, anything like that. You should have probably an internist instead of a family practice doc. But again, I would recommend that you quiz them before you go into their office about whether or not they're familiar with MS, whether they treat people with MS. If they don't, that doesn't necessarily rule them out. Are they willing to learn? Now, remember, you're head of HR. That means that you're the person that needs to know about your MS. You're the person that can teach the people caring for you how best to care for you. That doesn't mean you make all the decisions regarding your care. A lot of those have to be joint decisions, informed decisions. But ultimately, you're the person that makes that decision. There are other people on the list that I've mentioned, different types of therapy. If you're having cognitive issues or swallowing issues, you might need a speech therapist. I'm not sure I even have that category up on the list. But speech therapists are excellent in working with swallowing disorders, and that can be very common with people with MS. I was sitting at a dinner. My husband's professional association was having a dinner on the beach in Narragansett, Rhode Island, and we had a steak fry. And I had just put a piece of steak in my mouth, and somebody sitting next to me asked a question. She says, "Oh, my steak is hardly done." And I was going to say, "Well, mine's a little more than done with the first bite. Do you want to trade?" And I turned my head to talk to her, and I felt that piece of steak just slip down my throat. And all of a sudden, I realized I couldn't get any air. And within a matter of seconds, I had gone from this color to pale blue-gray. And my husband tried to give me the Heimlich, except he's given it to me around my waist, and I'm trying to move his hands up to where they'd be more effective. And the last thing I remember before I lost consciousness was seeing somebody running from across the deck and a fist coming at me, sliding on their belly across the table. Now, I don't know if that happened, but I woke up able to breathe, and it turns out that one of the people that my husband works with had done the Heimlich, but he couldn't get there quickly enough, so he had not done it the traditional way. So really, your MS can cause some life-threatening problems that you need to be aware of, and people around you need to know how to handle. So make sure that everybody knows how to do CPR and how to do the Heimlich and protect you from choking. I think, let's see. When you go to your doctors, it's very important that you determine before the visit what you want to communicate at that visit as concisely as possible. This is not a dialogue time. This is not a storytelling time. This is a time for you to go in and very clearly say, "This is my problem, this is what's going on, how do I deal with this? Do you have any suggestions that I haven't already tried?" So I make up, in advance of my visit, a one-page visit sheet. And I put all of my medications and supplements on it. I make note if I need a refill on anything. I pick no more than 2 or 3 concerns that I want brought up at that visit, and no more than 2 or 3 questions to ask the doctor. If you've got 20 questions that you need to ask the doctor and you can't pull them down into, say, 3 questions, they may be grouped into 3 basic areas, then you need to make another appointment and respect the physician's time or the nurse practitioner's time. That sheet that I use looks something like this. Make sure, I can send you a sheet that looks similar to this in Word document format, and you can put your own contact information at the top of the page. You can make it personalized, your name, your date of birth, the doctor that you're visiting, and the date of the visit. And then make sure they know virtually every supplement that you're taking, as well as any prescriptions. I also tick in on that page in red if I need a refill on something. So it brings to my mind and to the prescriber's mind what is going to need to be refilled. And then the questions. Now, I've put baclofen up here. I've never personally taken baclofen, but I know a lot of people who have. And a lot of people that are taking baclofen for spasticity are really having a difficult time struggling with the side effects that can cause, that many of the anti-spasticity medicines can cause, or many of the medicines that we take for bladder control or for neuropathic pain. They can make us very sleepy. They can make us fuzzy-headed. They can sap our energy. So we need to ask, are there options? If we're having side effects to therapies to manage symptoms, are there any options? And with something like this, if your spasticity is severe, there may be the option of something like a baclofen pump, which is, it's a discussion you can have with your doctor. It's significantly lower dose of the medication, but it's delivered directly to the area of concern, so you have almost no side effects from it at all. Again, if you want this, take my card that's on your table, email me, and I will send it to you. To feel your best, there may need to be some lifestyle changes. For me, that started out with food. I have really, over the last few years, transitioned from a lot of processed foods, sugars, preservatives, a lot of glutens and dairy. I grew up as on a dairy farm in northern New York State, halfway between Utica and Watertown. And so dairy was a huge part of my life. In fact, I was the 1970 Lewis County Dairy Princess. Now I have gotten into using fresh produce. We can container garden at home. We can garden in our windowsills. We can harvest fresh vegetables. The supermarkets provide them. I can tell you, I can fix a gourmet meal in about 15 or 20 minutes for the two of us using only fresh ingredients that haven't been frozen or preserved in any way. It is easy to do, and it's really not as expensive as it sounds. I've eliminated sugars and preservatives. The only dairy that I really eat is hard cheddar cheese that has no lactose in it. And Greek yogurts, again, no problem with my system with that. And yet, when I have breads or pastas, or when I have ice cream, on the rare occasion that I have ice cream or something like that, my contacts will cloud up. They get a residue on them. So I know that my body's reacting. My MS symptoms seem to be worse. So test yourself. Is something going on that if I eliminate something for a week and notice that it's getting better, am I willing to give it up? Exercise has been found to be absolutely essential for all of us with MS, no matter how severely we're impacted. Now, I can't do this. First of all, I don't like people seeing me exercise because I'm a little self-conscious about it. And I don't like putting on those little skinny tights and fluffy me getting up in front of other people. And I get way, way overheated when I'm exercising in a situation like this. So this is how I exercise. This picture, by the way, was taken on one of those MS cruises, which happens every year. But I keep my water in my pool. We actually built an addition on the house in 2006 and put a cool water jacuzzi in there, and I exercise in that using resistance tubing, or Pilates tubing or resistance bands to get strength. I am able to stretch in that small area of water. I don't swim, although if I wanted to, I suppose I could mimic swimming. But that works for me. I can exercise 30 or 40 minutes a day, where I couldn't do 3 minutes on a mat without losing my left side or losing part of the vision in my left eye because the heat ramps things up. Keep your cool. Heat exhaustion is really important this time of year to be watching out for. Heat exhaustion can happen very quickly on days like today or the last 3 that we've had where the temperature's over 90 if you're outside. Your internal temperature, it can be like you're sick. Your temperature can actually go up to above 102. Now, for every half degree of temperature elevation in those of us that have MS, it kicks in more of our heat-related MS symptoms. My normal temperature is 96.4. So if I get up to 97, my symptoms can sometimes kick in. I find my comfort zone is, as my husband likes to say, narrowing with every year. I can take less heat and I can take less intense cold. So I'm most comfortable and most functional between probably 64 and 69 or 70. Each of us is different, but really avoid heat exhaustion because it can change your electrolytes. It can leach sodium and potassium from your system as you sweat. And if you're low on your sodium or potassium, it can cause cardiac irregularities. You could actually have a stroke or a mild heart attack. So this is a real biggie. Keep yourself cool. Now, this is my husband David's foot on a spring hike in May up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. I'm not advocating that you go and stick your feet in snow, but certainly in cold water, it helps to keep your feet or any of your pulse points cool. There are a number of different cooling companies out there that make vests and scarves and wrist wraps and ankle wraps and torso wraps and things like that for us. A number of different cooling types of programs. There's evaporative cooling, and that cooling device works on immersing a product in water. Then a cooling gel or crystal that's inside the product activates, puffs up, and as you wear the garment, evaporation takes place and it cools you. I don't find that type of a cooling product works necessarily as well here in the Northeast as it does maybe in the Southwest. Because we have such generally high humidity levels most of the time, we're not getting the real good evaporative cooling effect of those products. I like the ice packs that go into things that keep me cool for 2 or 3 hours at a time. And cooling products of both kinds can be had from all of these companies. The MS Association of America has what they call an active cooling program. But it's kind of restrictive in that you've got to carry around something that looks like a cooler that's got cooling coils and a battery in it. You wear a hose that goes to your vest or collar or whatever, and it circulates cooling or ice water through the coils of whatever you're wearing. So there are multiple levels depending upon how severely you're affected. The Multiple Sclerosis Association of America does have a cooling program. So if you're unable to afford cooling products, they can help you get them. The MS Foundation runs a cooling program from February to June, where in the MS Focus magazine from the foundation, there is an application all through the winter months for this cooling program, and you can go ahead and apply to them. And Polar Products and Steel Products do provide cooling supplies for these programs. So you can get cooling equipment very inexpensively or completely free through these programs. Heat Relief Depot is something that I discovered online several years ago. They will give you 10% off your order if you let them know at checkout that you have a condition that requires cooling, such as MS or in some cases fibromyalgia. And they'll also give you, if you review their products, a coupon for your next product that you order from them. Let me go back here for a second. I'm going to be showing you several components during this talk that come from a handout that I have done up on helpful links for people with MS. If that handout would be helpful to you with anything you see on here, again, email me, ask for it, I will send it to you. Relax. Many of us in this room who have MS are type A or A plus individuals. We can be perfectionists. We can be go, 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 do, doers. We need to learn how to take a deep breath and how to relax and how to let go. We need to learn how to tend our spirits. It is important that you find time for you to recharge your batteries every single day. Even if it's only 5 minutes a day. Take some time to be quiet, to practice your breathing, to learn how to relax. There are apps that you can put on your cell phone now that teach you to breathe, that teach you breathe in for the count of 7, breathe out for the count of 9. They're designed to help you learn how to relax and to be more in touch with what's going on in your body. If you have a faith system, nurture it. Be with people who think similarly or even who think differently, and you can get into a heated debate with in a very friendly way. All of these things help you to tend your spirit. Stay on your meds. I want to know by a show of hands how many people in this room have MS. Okay, now keep those hands up. If you are not on any medication, put them down. Good for you. Most of you are still on medication. If you're not on medication, there are a number of reasons why people choose not to be on medication. They want to treat things naturally. I'm sorry, but we've never found anything naturally that stops the damage going on in the central nervous system. There are things that we can use in conjunction with our treatment that are natural, that help us to feel better, like exercise and good eating. But there is nothing that we have found yet that treats MS naturally. Get plenty of sleep. More than half of us with MS do not sleep well at night. Many of us have obstructive sleep apnea. Many of us would benefit from a CPAP machine. Many of us are wakening regularly to go to the bathroom. Many of us are having spasticity issues that cause pain as we're sleeping and have us flip-flopping and not sleeping well. Those are conversations you need to have with your doctor. This is my baby. She's going to turn 40 this fall. Get a hobby. Do something that pulls you out of you. Learn something new. I met last evening over at the Walt Whitman Mall with a nursing school classmate that I hadn't seen in 44 years. I know, I graduated a long time ago. She just took up crocheting when she retired. So find something that you can do that gives you joy. Help others. Doesn't matter how severely you're impacted, you are able to help somebody else. This is Ruth. Ruth's sister Dorothy also has MS. For years, I could never tell them apart when I met them until I started doing word association. Ruth rides. Dorothy uses Canadian crutches, so Dorothy dances. So obviously, Dorothy would have a hard time getting a deck chair for herself with her Canadian crutches, but Ruth, because she's mobile with her scooter, can get it for her. Even listening to somebody is helpful. So find something that you can do that makes a difference in somebody else's life. It will make your life better. This is the biggie. Smoking. We now know that those of us who have MS who smoke progress at a rate significantly faster than non-smokers. Those of us who have MS who live with a smoker progress faster than non-smokers. So find a way to stop. Get it out of your life, and you're going to be feeling better. Do you wish me to continue for just a minute longer?
Sure.
Okay. We'll do questions at the end. Are you aware that in as little a time it takes to boil an egg, another person in the United States is diagnosed with MS? Same with a pound of pasta. Another person's being diagnosed with MS. In the 1970s, when I went to nursing school, our figures were about 400,000 people in the United States had MS. We now know through some of the research we're doing that those figures are very much higher than that, although those are still the official figures. There's probably closer to 750,000 people, or even 1 million in the United States, that are diagnosed with MS. There's a group that has recently formed called I Conquer MS that is doing big data. We're gathering information from people who have MS and as healthy controls from their families. I do have more information on that on your tables. Be part of the cure. It's a little bifold brochure. Please take one with you. Go to the website, look at it, figure out what you can do to add your voice to the data. Big data has power. There are patient-powered research networks like I Conquer MS all over the United States. In fact, there are over 6 million of us now that are sharing our health data, which is being de-identified, and then that's being given to researchers to bring down the cost of our treatments. For every 100 drugs that goes into the pipeline, only one actually makes it to FDA approval. The cost of bringing that one drug through the 15-year average process to approval is $900 million. So if you're wondering why the cost of your meds are so high, that's a good reason right there. By sharing our data, we can lower the cost of that. So please take that brochure on your table and sign up with I Conquer MS, and I will take questions.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks, Cherie. Everybody like Cherie? She okay? There we go. So what I'm going to do now, she's not just going to get to take questions. I have to run around the room. Okay, I need to burn some calories, so I hope that you can raise your hands. Let me know who might have a question. All right, great, good start. Okay, so what I'm going to do, remember, please raise your hand so I can acknowledge, and then we're going to do questions for about 10 minutes, and then we can get going with Cherie here, and she can listen to the rest of the program.
Any tips for battling fatigue when it hits you out of the blue?
Yes. Basically, cool off. Even if you don't feel like you're overheated. Drink. Hydration is very, very important. Make sure that what you're drinking is very cold. I heard a tip the other day from Dr. Ben Thrower in Atlanta. He does a lot of hiking, and he wears a Camelback water bag. You can get it at Sporting Goods. He puts it in the freezer halfway full of water till it gets sort of slushy, and then breaks it up and puts it on his back. It has a little tube that comes around, and you can sip on the tube to get liquid. When it's on your back like that, partly frozen, it cools you, and the slushy or the liquid that you're taking in, the better the internal cooling. So hydrate, keep cool. One of the things that I personally have found makes a huge difference is posture. If we just really force ourselves to uncurl and sit up straight or stand up straight, we can get more oxygen, our brains are sharper, the fatigue can be lessened. So cooling, hydration, posture, 3 major things.
Next question.
Yes, just want to know how you managed to go from being in a scooter to walking so beautifully.
Thank you. I think a lot of that is dialogue with your MS physician, determining what is the right medicine for you at your particular state of disease. I had to get on to a couple of different medications before I found something that worked for me. It's very individual. We've got 14 medications now, so that's a discussion you need to have with your doctor. As I began to feel a little better, as the inflammation in my central nervous system kind of was addressed by the medication, it was like I was surfacing. I was coming up for a breath of air. And as I began to resurface, I was thinking more clearly. And I began, as a result of that, to sort of extend what I was doing. And I think as we do that slowly, we begin to recondition. I don't know that it's the medications themselves are reducing impact. I think a lot of the symptoms that most of us experience are part of deconditioning. And if we can recondition, exercise, eat correctly, a lot of those things help. They were all a huge part of getting to where I am today. You're welcome.
Question back here.
Hi, thank you. My father has multiple sclerosis, and he drinks a lot of coffee and will take a lot of ibuprofen when it gets bad, but he hasn't really taken any other medication. I just wanted to know your opinion on that. He has to go to the bathroom a lot and has a lot of fatigue.
There are a number of symptom management medications that are out there. Again, that's a discussion he needs to have with his doctor. With the latest medications that have been approved by the FDA, there are now medications to help people that have progressive forms of MS. Another conversation to have with his doctor. Coffee often is one of the best fatigue management things that we can do. For some of us it works, for some of us it doesn't. But you've got to realize that with every medication he adds for symptom management, there may be side effects that he'll have to deal with as well. But he does need to talk with his doctor about these things, and he needs to be willing to make some changes.
Do we have any other questions? It's very loud. Any other questions? Raise your hand.
I'm sorry? Yeah, I wanted to ask, I don't like this thing, about the baclofen. Do you happen to know the side effects? Because I didn't have any, but now I've been having side effects of some sort, and I'm wondering if it's baclofen.
I can't really tell you if it's baclofen or not. I will be here after the program very briefly. We can talk, and I will help you to formulate some questions that you can take to your doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, or you can email me with what's going on, and I will help you through that.
Any other questions? Nobody has a question? Everybody want to thank Cherie for coming? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cherie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.